have the second part of our meeting, that is to listening our friends on their experiences, on their involvement in the ground, especially during COVID-19, regarding their involvement in the relief work, especially the whole the Mercy Mission Trust, I think, has done enormous work, as all of us are aware of it. Those of you who are not aware, I believe they have been in the forefront from every sort of relief work. They will definitely will explain what is what has been taken place in the field. I would like to introduce to you two speakers of the day. Uh, we have Sarah. She has worked as a design engineer for Cypress Semiconductor, and at present she is a trustee of Project Smile Trust, and she's also core member of Mercy Mission Trust. Uh, and just also she is director of AdSafe Solutions, and she will also speak to us her experience being the trustee member of Project Mercy Mission. Secondly, we will have another speaker, Mr. Mohammad Ismail. He is basically a techie in Bangalore. He is a data expert and scientist. He is also a filmmaker, and is an active member of Mercy Mission. Is called Mercy Angel. I welcome them, and I now invite Sarah to make her presentation. You have 30 minutes. Both of you have got 30 minutes. After that, participants will have definitely have many questions, and there will be time for interaction. May I request Sarah to take over?
Can you hear me? Just want to make sure that I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And it's absolutely wonderful to see so many people from all walks of life over here. And it's thank you for inviting us over here to present what Mercy Mission has been doing so far with all the relief work that was involved. With the onset of this pandemic, COVID-19, we did anticipate a lot of medical issue, but what the lockdown brought was also a lot of humanitarian issues along with it. So what we did was we called in a meeting of all the NGOs in and around Bangalore that we know of for a emergency of sorts. And we said we have to unite if we have to face this situation together, because we needed scalability, we needed presence in as many areas of Bangalore as was necessary, and nobody could do it alone. And only with unity can we kind of achieve any sizable measure in terms of relief in this lockdown and pandemic at large. So Mercy Mission was formed as an emergency response team to provide support to public across Bangalore during this COVID-19 outbreak. And as a disaster management task force set up by creating a coalition or consortium of more than 25, 30 NGOs in and around Bangalore. So we have people from all over united towards this relief work. We have not just NGOs, but lots of individuals as well who have come under the umbrella of Mercy Mission so that we could all unitedly do activities, and it will be scalable as well, because one is doing something somewhere and the other doesn't know. We have skills that we can offer, skills that we can take from the other people. So the united effort was the most important thing at this time. Once the lockdown was announced, what we immediately did was we launched a helpline for people who wanted, who were in need of food and other basic necessities of life, especially the ones who lived hand-to-mouth existence and those who were poor and the migrant laborers, basically. So through this helpline, they could call us and we would immediately give them those things that were necessary for them to survive in this thing. What we also observed with this helpline was there's a lot of calls coming from a particular area, say a very densely populated place. So we figured Mercy Kitchens had to be set up in these areas so that the local skill work can be given employment. We set up a kitchen in those areas which were densely populated and a lot of calls coming from them as well. We almost set up more than 33 kitchens so far, I suppose. And we were catering to them in their area so that we could restrict the movement as well. So through these kitchen, it not just offered food, but also employment to all those people who were in need of it as well. So some of the things that we continued doing was, since it was an emergency situation, it required quick decision making and also implementation, very swift implementation on field as well. And since we were a consortium of NGOs, we could do it really quickly. You know, we had a problem and we could solve it and immediately implement it on ground, you know, with very less time basically. And we started creating social media campaigns, awareness campaigns, not just on social media, but also on field. We used to go into slums and other areas with speakers and tell them what this whole situation was, educate the people as to what they need to do. There was nothing to be worried or scared about. They need not be scared about this, but at the same time, you need to take certain precautions. And if you're in need of food or anything, you could always come to us for that. And not just that, we also partnered with traffic police and the other authorities to kind of scale this awareness campaigns as well. So once the helplines for the food was established, and we knew that a sizable number of them were catered to with food and groceries and medicines for that matter, uh, we had to face this whole migrant crisis. The people who started walking from here towards their hometown. And once the Shramik trains were announced, we took up the responsibility of giving them a food kit which contained edibles such as rotis and other things which would survive them, which would kind of enable them to survive for more than 1 or 2 days in this journey that they are embarking upon to reach their hometowns, basically. So we were able to kind of catered more than 1 million rotis in that span of 1.5 months, which involved not just NGOs, but a lot of citizen supported movements as well. Because once the word went out that we were actually involved in such a relief activity, a lot of people joined in, regardless of their faith, regardless of what their beliefs were, regardless of who they were and where they were coming from. They joined hands, and in the railway station, we could see people with caps, people with pagadis, people with the janus, everybody were there standing together to serve humanity, which was the most humbling part for us, because at the end of the day, we are all here to serve humanity. And that's what, when we look at it, each one of our religion teaches as well. And we were living that part of our faith by serving there. So through the Shramik trains, we were able to cater to more than 1 million rotis and lakhs of food kits as well for everybody who were traveling. And once the lockdown was lifted, we again, as I said, not just humanitarian crisis, but it also had a lot of medical crisis. So COVID-19 was something that would affect the lungs, and it a lot of people had issues with breathing. So we had to set up oxygen centers in and around Bangalore again. And we were able to establish a helpline for that and set up more than 6 to 7 centers, and also kind of joined everybody else who were having these oxygen centers in different areas. So there was a common helpline that people could call to if they needed oxygen at all. And this is a kind of thing that progresses very quickly. So if there was a medical intervention made at the right time, we could save a life. So these oxygen centers cater to those people who were all of a sudden feeling breathless. And once they came there, we not just gave them the cylinder for free, completely free. All these activities were done completely free of cost. We also encouraged them to get them tested, gave them medical consultations, whatever they needed, and also did a follow-up as to how the cylinder helped them, or if they needed more of it, a doctor was on board to consult with them and kind of encourage them to go get tested and not to be scared of it, and even get hospitalized if there was a necessity for it. We realized that a lot of people had needed that consultation of doctors as well. So we launched something called as a Mercy Clinic, which was an online consultation clinic. People could just go on our app. The app is available even now. You could go on the app and pick out any doctors that you wish to and consult regarding your medical condition from the comforts of your home. So once, even today, there are lots of people benefiting from such a consultations. One of our charity partners was HBS Hospitals, which is basically a dialysis center, a free dialysis center for the poor, and Dr. Mateen is heading it. Once we realized that there is a need of more hospital beds because there is a crisis and lots of people looking for beds, we, through Mercy Mission, converted the whole hospital into a COVID hospital, basically. So the entire dialysis center was shifted to another place, and the HBS hospital in essence became a COVID hospital. And not just that, there is another place right next to HBS which was taken and converted into a COVID care center. And today, more than, I don't have the exact numbers, but more than 20 to 50 patients are there in the hospital getting treated for, most of the needy come for free over there. And along with this, we also started running free ambulance services for people who needed it. They could just again call on the helpline number, and we would send them the ambulance to either go to any hospital, or even for that matter, for any emergencies, whether it was COVID or non-COVID related as well. Currently, we see a lot of demand for plasma, people requiring plasma. So some of our team members are running drives where we could collect the data of those people who are willing to donate plasma and create that bank as well. And well, off the top of my mind, these are the list of the things that we've, relief activities that we've been able to do, from giving food and groceries to catering to everybody's medical needs in terms of medicines they require, or even COVID treatment that they require, helping out the migrants during the whole crisis that was happening, and online consultations for people, running free ambulances. No matter what the situation threw at us, we were able to kind of set up a system very fast to cater to people in need, basically. And not just that, most of our volunteers over here are also involved with the authorities in getting beds for the patients who require it. And one of the verticals that we foresaw coming was the deaths that we would be facing with the onslaught of COVID. And because of the vision that the founders of Mercy Mission had, we had a vertical called something called as Mercy Angels. We would take care of dignified burials for people or the victims of COVID according to their faith, basically. And my dear colleague over here, Ismail, sitting over here, he leads the whole Mercy Angels team, which handles the dignified burials of all those victims of COVID. So this, of course, we had help of so many corporates like Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiatives and the BBMP of Bengaluru, and so many people like IAS officers who kind of associated and cooperated so much that we were able to do this. And the only learning from this is humanity triumphs all. And if we come together as people, just people who could here to serve humanity, we could achieve amazing things in life and really live the essence of what our faith stands for, basically. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to brief out the activities of Mercy Mission, and I request now Ismail to take over the Mercy Angels particular bit.
My name is Mohammad Ismail. I've been leading the Mercy Angels wing, which is one of the wing for Mercy Mission. This was originally started by Dr. Taha Mateen and Mehdi Kaleem, who initiated this particular initiative. So we started this back in the month of March. As soon as the lockdown was announced, we started with this particular initiative. We reached out to the BBMP Health Commissioner, Mr. Pankaj Pandey, and we put across this message saying that we want to help out all the COVID victims, all the COVID deaths that are happening in Bangalore, and give them a very dignified last journeys. And we also went ahead and said during the lockdown, people were facing a lot of issues finding vehicles. The ambulances, the hospitals were not ready to send their ambulances because there was a fear that this might be a COVID death. So there's a lot of stigma around it. And we said we will also take care of non-COVID deaths during the lockdown. So when we approached the BBMP Health Commissioner and a lot of other officials in BBMP, they were very happy with the initiative, and they were very pleased, and they immediately gave us a letter authorizing Mercy Angels to do the last journeys of COVID deaths and also the non-COVID in the entire Karnataka. But our focus remained with Bangalore itself. The HBS hospital was the base of this particular initiative. We had the ambulances. We had we had a couple of ambulances from the HBS hospital. We also had one ambulance coming in from KMCC group, who dedicated their ambulances for this particular initiative. We also have volunteers. So this activity was kicked off with about 6 volunteers. Most of them were from the HBS hospital itself. They were staff of the HBS hospital. We started doing these last journeys, and slowly we started seeing a peak, especially in the month of June and July. There were a lot of COVID deaths that were happening, and so by then a lot of other people had also started volunteering. So from the team of 6, right today we are a team of about 30 volunteers on ground who are helping us in completing these last journeys. We have people from across faiths who've joined us for this particular volunteer work, who are helping us with these last journeys. So in terms of numbers, since the lockdown, we've done about 350 plus COVID last journeys, and about 47 of non-COVID last journeys as well. So this is a brief of the Mercy Angels initiative, but I would really like if somebody has a question who can ask regarding this particular initiative. I think that will be really good to answer the questions.
Thank you, Sarah and Muhammad Ismail, for your sharing and inspiring all of us with the initiative. Maybe I will begin with the question. This whole lockdown and COVID-19 came in a particular background when Muslim community was at a very bad situation. They were had a terrible sense of betrayal, and I was very much part of this whole anti-CAA program, and this whole Amendment Act had disturbed the whole harmony and whole fabric of our country. In this background, normally we expect people to become more self-centered, and they would normally take care of their own community. It become a ghetto mentality. But here, something it becomes something different. You have shown to our country, shown to the society, a totally different message. How that has come about? What has inspired you to say, let us go beyond this boundary of religion, caste, and community, and serve the humanity? From where that is coming? Can you share on that? I would like our participants to hear that. We are an interreligious group here. We are trying to promote that harmony, promote that message. I would like you to speak from that perspective, how this whole initiative has become interreligious, and perhaps you must have reached out more non-Islamic people than Islam. I mean, I don't know whether you have got that statistics as well. Yeah, will you share on that line a little, please?
We don't really have any statistics as of now as to how many Muslims we've done or how many non-Muslims we've done. But rest assured that whatever call that we receive, uh, we have addressed those. One moment, at this point. Yeah. So whatever calls that we received for the last journeys we've completed without asking any questions, without asking their religion, without asking their caste or creed or anything. And this is not just from our side. Even the families, right? When we approach them saying that, okay, we are going to send an ambulance, the volunteers are going to come and to, pick up the body from the hospital or from home and complete the last rites. We've done close to 400 now, and not a single family has come back to ask, which religion are you from? Are you a Muslim, or are you a Hindu, or are you a Christian who's going to, do the last rites of my loved one? Yeah, especially the baby. Let me just give you a narrative of one of the last rites that we did, and something that was really, really painful. A 16-day-old baby expired in the hospital, right, due to COVID, and the mother and the father were quarantined at the hospital. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it to the cremation. We sent the ambulance to the hospital to pick up this baby, and the baby was wrapped in a very small polythene cover, and volunteers picked it up. It was really, really heartbreaking even for them to pick up this 16-day-old baby who's a victim of COVID, and they're taking it for the cremation. And apparently they had to, they spoke to the family, they spoke to the mother, and the person who picked it up from the hospital, his name was Sheikh Imran. And the mother only had one request for Sheikh Imran. She said, my only request is that while you're on the way to the crematorium, can you chant Ram Nam Satya Hai till you reach crematorium? So I think it was a goosebump kind of a moment for everybody when we heard this, especially for Sheikh Imran. And he said he kindly obliged, and he followed that till he reached the crematorium, and they completed the last rite. That was a really, really painful last journey that we did, that our team did. And there was another instance, where father had expired in one of the private hospitals, and the daughter is the only person who was with the father, and she was also quarantined, and there is nobody else apart from her in the family. So it was over 24 hours that her father had expired, and there is nobody to do the last rites. The hospital is not aware what to do, because it was apparently one of their first COVID death. A lot of issues regarding what to do when the COVID death happens. So when we reached out to the family, the daughter was crying inconsolably. She was like, we could not console her. She is like, my father is lying at the mortuary from over 24 hours. There is nobody to pick him up. Can you please help me do the last rites? We will fall on your feet. Please come and do the last rites of my father. Let him, complete the Antim Samskar of my father, and I will pay you how much ever money that you want. In that particular scenario, right, she did not ask what is your name or which religion are you coming from. She did not have any issues giving out to somebody who's coming from a Muslim background to give out the body and do the last rites. All that she wanted was the last rite, the cremation of her father, to be completed. And we obliged that. We went her, we supported her. There were a lot of issues initially with the BBMP, municipal, and all of that. So we went to the hospital, we picked up the body, we did the cremation. So somewhere when the pandemic has hit us, right, a lot of us have stopped questioning which religion are you coming from, which caste are you coming from. The pandemic has hit us very hard. It is not saying which religion you are. The virus is affecting everybody, irrespective of the religion, whether you're rich or a poor, everybody is dying. So it has sort of brought a sense of, how we all should unite together and fight this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, over this question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, um, what unites us, all of us over here, I think you would recognize more than anything are our prophets. We believe in Isa, or who you call as Jesus. And our faith is not complete without believing him. And we have to understand that there are factors that unites us, several factors that unites us, and very few of them that if we really concentrate, we can look about, dividing ourselves from our own accord, from our own being, because at the end of the day, we were here doing service or NGO work, as one could put it, from a long time. And every believer will be tested. All of our prophets were tested, and we believe that we are here uh, to live that life of test, so that we finally take our own journeys and get our merits from the one that is sitting above. So what we do during this time, how we face the challenge, and whether we concentrate on the solutions or are we stuck with the issues that are coming on us, is what makes us probably different from those who think that faith is a stagnant thing. Faith is not stagnant. Faith is very dynamic, and it only stands on the foundation of service to humanity. It is a verb. We cannot make it a noun. It is a verb. And my actions is what will define, if we concentrate on the whole aspect of faith, my actions is what is going to tell you what my faith is all about. It's not the words that I speak. It's not the shallow things that I say. It is my actions. And today, if, as you rightly said, the Muslim community has risen up to the challenge, we were here. Every community has its own good apples and the bad apples, and we are people at the end of the day. If we have to concentrate on the religious identity that some people wear on their sleeve and some don't, some identify with their faith and some don't, at the end of the day, what unites all of us is that one aspect of humanity. That's it. And that is what unites us. And if we concentrate on that one particular thing, take skills from each other, united, we can face literally no matter what the people throw at us or what the nature throws us at.
Okay, thank you. It is open now for anybody to ask any questions or any clarifications. I think in the chat box, there is a lot of appreciation that has been posted for your work. If anybody has got a question, I don't think there is any specific question. Anybody has got a question to ask, speakers, you're welcome.
Hello, Father, can you hear me?
Yes, Prakash, please go ahead with your question. Yeah.
The question is, are there activities still continuing, or has it been suspended as of now?
Okay, is asking whether your activities are still continuing at present. What are you engaged with? That is the basic question. Yeah.
The next part of the question is, can they share their contact number so that it can be circulated among the general public?
Yes, Mercy Mission is very much continuing, and we will continue. What we are currently doing is actively doing is with respect to the oxygen cylinders. People coming request for oxygen cylinders. Our COVID hospital is still running. Our plasma donation is getting set up, and we are kind of gathering details for it. And Mercy Angel, as usual, is active. All of the verticals that we are undertaking is very much active. One of the recent things that we have recently launched or is undertaking, or that's something that we are undertaking, is something called as field booths. Wherein in certain areas, densely populated areas, of course, we have something called as a field booth setup, who will check the temperatures, who will check the SpO2 or the oxygen levels of people, and especially in densely populated areas like Mangam and Palya, like Neelsandra and different areas. So we have these tiny centers set up who will connect to PHCs, who will connect to hospitals and everything. and the people of that particular area will be standing as volunteers over there. This is done to kind of reduce the fear of getting tested, so that more and more people feel comfortable and the right intervention is done at the right time, basically. And what else? Our online consultations are still going on. We probably, what else is there? Oxygen cylinders, plasma, the field booths, and Mercy Angels. Almost, and awareness is still going on, and people are still coming up with issues with employment and food as well. So that is also being catered to. So literally everything, it's almost, you can say, as a holistic approach. Literally anybody needs, no matter what, we do have a solution in kind of giving them relief that they need.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Rafael. Yeah, please go ahead with your question.
I am basically from Bombay. I think most of the participants here are from Bangalore or in and around Karnataka. First of all, thank you, the Jesuit province, for organizing this. And the two speakers of Mercy Mission have detailed their activities. One of the challenges, and I compliment them, of course, one of the challenges that is faced today is because of the lockdown and the pandemic is specifically employment. What specific steps is Mercy Mission taking or have taken in addressing these issues, if you have addressed? I mean, you have done such a lot to the society already in different fields, in medicines, looking after the patients, the migrants, and of course, the last rites for their last journey. But anything has been done specifically with regard to the employment?
Okay, regarding employment, we were able to kind of give employments to a lot of skilled laborers, skilled cooks. When we set up, particularly when we talk about certain projects, we were able to, when we set up Mercy Kitchens, we were able to provide a lot of people with employment opportunities as well. Because as you know, India has a lot of such people who are day-to-day, daily wage earners and hand-to-mouth people who exist hand-to-mouth as well. So all these people from those particular areas, we were able to take them and give employment, and how much ever we could, we did do that as well. And even till today, our helplines are taken up by the people, the call executives who answer the calls. Some of them are completely voluntary. For example, 50% of our organization, for example, me, Ismail, all of us have different day jobs. So all of us are doing work over here are completely voluntary. And on the other side, there are also people who we have employed to kind of take up work as an executive or as a field booth volunteer or a warehouse managers. We have created patterns of employment in such way. Other than this, since we are a consortium of NGOs working over here, we have our usual projects also that is behind, kind of running at the back burner. So those projects also concentrate on a lot of skill development and employment at the end of the day, because we do kind of encourage people to, as they say, teach the man how to fish, basically. So we all believe in that, and we are constantly working towards skill development and employment for people so that they could stand up on their own two feet. But Mercy Mission in particular, yes, we have been able to generate a lot of employment in the due course of this relief work as well.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions or clarification? Yes, Sarah, I've got another question. During this relief work, even there was a lot of hatred in Bangalore. There were many incidents. I know some of our Mercy Mission volunteers also were attacked, and there are a lot of false propaganda that these are also spreading virus through the food. All these allegations were there. How did you address this? I mean, this was the terrible discouragement. This is the, I mean, atrocious on this time of pandemic. And how did you respond to this kind of accusation, perhaps harassment and labeling and whatnot? I mean, any extreme.
Words cannot counter something like this. What we could answer was with our work. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, if somebody is trying to logically talk and discuss, we would sit and talk with them. Our volunteers, I myself have faced such a thing. If I could relate my own experience, yes, we ourselves have faced such a thing, and it totally depends on the person. If they're trying to figure out what's going on and they themselves don't know, we can sit down with them and kind of try to explain, this is what the truth is, or this is what we know of. And if somebody is being totally unreasonable, we don't want to. It's like being quiet is, our silence and our work is the best answer to any such accusations or any such slander. And we are living the life that our prophets have taught us, and what more could be. It's almost like who wasn't tested in such ways. And we have examples of what they did when they were tested, and we have, with utmost dignity, with utmost grace, with the truth, that is what we've been trying to do. Whether we've been successful or not, we don't know. But what we're going to continue to do is continue the good work, serve humanity, and that's it. Any other things, it's just distraction. There is no use kind of even probably talking about it.
Yeah.
Mel, do you want to add anything?
Thank you. Yes. Any other questions? Can take another 2 minutes if anybody has got any clarification question.
And I must add, actually, as I told you, we saw people from all walks of life, from all walks of faith, on the field serving those who were in need. Do we need a bigger proof that we can unite for humanity more than this? Or do we need something like a pandemic to strike us and then we understand that we can unite? You know, but this has come as a big revelation and comfort for us, because we are still great friends with all those people who we met on field. We didn't know them. We didn't know their existence. We didn't know their names. We were just used to come serve. They used to be in the same field. If we talk about Shramik trains, I used to go to the railway stations as well. So many of them, and I'm still friends with them. And there have been amazing people like Aparna and all those people who is involved with JCERT as well. She's been amazing support, not just on field. She's been giving helping us with contacts, like, go to him, he should be able to do this for you. Everybody is concentrated on work. And this is an amazing aspect that we got to witness firsthand during this whole Mercy Mission relief.
Finally, last question now. We have partly answered this question. What of your religion gives this message for you, or perhaps inspiration for you to work like this? How your religion is helping you to take up this kind of noble work? What is the inspiration? And what can you quote from your own scripture, if you have to quote to us? What is that inspiration? I hope my question is...
The thing that we put up as our motto as well, if you see the name of Mercy Mission or Mercy Angels anywhere, you'll see one quote below it, which will say, saving one life is equivalent to saving the entire mankind. And that is what we stand by, and that is what inspires us as well. There are millions of such quotes we can find in our scriptures, because at the end of the day, it's all service oriented. But what we have put up on our hoardings is saving one life is like saving the entire mankind, and that's what kind of drives us every day.
Okay, thank you. I believe you have given the overall picture of Mercy Mission and the point of inspiration for you, and that is also definitely inspiring all of us. And I told you particularly I'm in admiration because of two things. You have not given up despite all the opposition, despite all the propaganda that went against your community whenever you started this work. And secondly, perhaps this is a more risky work that you have taken. It is not only service, perhaps, which is safe. It is very, very dangerous in a way. It is risky, especially to become a Mercy Angel and to involve in the work of burial, especially. And I think that is the great service you could definitely think of. Perhaps otherwise, our life would have been still more bad during this COVID-19. Therefore, thank you very much for participating in this interreligious meeting. I would invite both of you to continue to be part of this Ashirwad Interreligious Harmony group. We need to continue to give this message to the people, to the humanity. When people are trying to divide and spread the culture of hate, I think the culture of love and the culture of service needs to be equally strong in the face of that hatred and perhaps labeling and whatever other propaganda that is taking place in our country. On behalf of IRHM, I appreciate your service. I appreciate your commitment, and thank you both of you, Sarah and Ismail, for joining with us and sharing your own experience. And I'm very sure you continue to associate with Ashirwad IRHM in our future endeavors as well. So thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Ismail.